the 10th lecture of this course. We have been talking about different things in this course. We learned about the structure of the course, that's the structure of research. When we want to do research, we should have some kind of structure, like we have introduction, literature review, methods, results, and conclusion. And as I said earlier, that all our implications, all our examples will be drawn from linguistics or applied linguistics, because this is our specializations. And I thought today to give you some little practice, some little practical examples, just to give you the feeling of research. And as I said, a piece of research can be as little as just specifying the number of good and bad teachers in your school, for example, classifying your students into good and bad students. What I mean by good and bad students in terms of proficiency and language. So it can be as little and as small like that, and it can be more than that, and it can involve a lot of complications and a lot of data and analysis. So today's examples are very simple, very little, and very small. As I said, as applied linguists or as linguists in general, sometimes we care about the language itself, not the stakeholders or students or administrators or the school itself, the policies and everything. No, we care about the language itself. Say that you want to choose a text, a passage for your students, and you want to make sure that this text, this passage is suitable to your students. It's not an easy job, believe me, especially if you want to select a text outside the materials, outside the textbook and the teaching materials. It's not an easy job at all. You need to be professional in picking up that piece of text. Why? Because it's not haphazard. It's not just like, well, I'm going to pick up this text, I'm going to choose that passage. No, you need to be systematic and you need to be professional. So this is the first example we are going to see here. The second example, and it is the most popular type of topics in research, that sometimes you want to find problems in your students' language. These problems called errors. Students' errors, for example, in your course while they are writing, or errors while they speak, error in their grammar. These two topics are very popular in applied linguistic research, so this is why we are going to draw our examples from these two topics. So today's lecture is called "It's Still We Are Evolving in Data Collection." It is called "Defining Your Terms." So defining your terms. This is the first example, or this is the first task. As I said earlier, that you want to select a passage for your students. One way to measure the suitability of this text against your students is to measure the words in the text. You read the text and you see the words, whether they are familiar to your students, whether they are easy to your students. How can you know that? Just by comparing the words. Are these words familiar to your students by looking at the words in the textbook. In other words, have been these words introduced to your students before or not? Have they seen these words before from their materials or textbooks you are giving them in this semester or in the previous semester? This is just one way to measure the suitability of the word. So word familiarity to your students, and the length of the text. Say that you want to give a text to beginners. You cannot give them 10 pages. You can't give them even 1 page. You cannot give them even a whole text, just 1 paragraph. But with advanced students, you can give them, depending on how advanced they are, you can give them 1 page, 2 page of text or passages. So word difficulty, let's say, and the length of the text are 2 important criteria in selecting your text. There are different criteria, but let's focus on these 2 criteria: word difficulty and the length of the text. How can we count or measure the length of the text? By counting the words. How many words are there in this piece of text? Are there 500 words, 1,000 words? So this is one way. But before we do that, we need to define what a word is. If I ask you what a word is, someone would say a word is a word. A word, letters grouped together, and this is word. I know, but define what a word is. We need a definition. So based on that definition, we can count words. We can say, well, this is a word. Is it difficult to our students or not? Is it familiar or not? And let me give you an example. A and the. Are you consider these words? How, where, which, what? Are you going to consider these words? You would say yes. But how about go and goes? Are these 2 different words? How about inform and information? Different words. Maybe, or just 1 word. So you see, if you say, well, inform and information are 2 different words, well, you have implicitly admitted that students need to study the word inform and information separately, although they belong to the same word family. If you have studied before, maybe morphology or syntax, we have something called word families. And inform is called the stem. And there are some inflectional words. Information, informant, and a lot of derivations. So, again, we need to explicitly define what a word is. So counting things in spoken or written products can be harder than you think. Even what is a word can be complicated and caused a disaster to one of my PhD students when asked this in a Viva once. Yet one cannot count words without a definition. This is from Phil Schofield. He's a very well-known researcher in vocabulary and words, and he's here giving us some of his expertise and some advice to be followed. So he's saying here, counting things in spoken or written products can be harder than you think. Yes, it can be very, very hard, and we will see in the example here. Even what is a word can be complicated. So in this text, how many words are there? And let me give you the story of this PhD student. He went to the Viva. Viva is the oral defense after you finish your research, your PhD, your doctorate thesis. You submit it to the examiners. You come to that day. You sit with the examiners and they start to discuss your research before they announce, well, congratulations, you became a doctor. So this is the Viva, the oral defense. So this guy went to his Viva. It was about vocabulary and words. And the first question he was asked by the examiners, define a word. He couldn't answer. He couldn't answer. He researched words and vocabulary for 3 or 4 or maybe 5 years, and he couldn't answer that question. It was very hard and difficult. Why? Because from the beginning, he did not define the word. He thought it's not important. Well, I know what a word is, but no. I know that you know what a word is, but you need to define it. So you say, well, I will count go and goes as a one word. Why? Because they belong to the same part of speech. They are still verbs, go and goes, but with different inflections. So I will count them as just one word. But how about go and went? They passed. So you see, it's not an easy. You need from the beginnings to state that I will follow this definition. I will say that these words are separate words from these words. I will follow this model or framework. But again, it's not as you think. If you're going to define a word, it needs to be based on a rationale. It needs to be based on previous research, previous literature, and based on experts' definitions, and etc. You cannot just say, well, I will follow this. No, it needs to be justified and rationalized. So in this text, how many words are there? What problems arise in deciding on the answer? How would you prefer to resolve them in your definition of a word? How do you think a computer would resolve them if asked to count words? Yes, if we ask a computer to count these words, what do you think? Is it going to generate the same answer as yours or not? So let's read the text. At long last, I decided that I couldn't put up with the food any longer. But having taken that decision, I next had to decide where else to go to eat. I longed for takeaway fast food. Indecisive, I first went to McDonald's, then KFC. Well, I'll give you some time to read the text, and you can pause the lecture to just test yourself. Just have some fun and test yourself how many words are there. Given that you had paused the lecture, I'll give you the answer here. I'll try just to help you. How many I's in the text? We have here I. We have here I, and here I. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 or 6 I. 6 I's, not I's, 6 I's, the letter I or the pronoun I are there in the text. Are you going to say, well, we have 6 words here, or just 1 word? Well, let me tell you that we have something called type and token. Type and token. So I is the type, and the number of repetitions of the same type is called tokens. The number of the reoccurrence of the same word is called token. So here we have one type, which is I, but 6 or 5 tokens. So this is very important. Are you going to count types, only types, or tokens as well? Well, for types, if you want just to see the spread of knowledge, the depth of knowledge of your students, you are going to be concerned with types only, because you are not concerned with how many times they repeat the same word. So if you are concerned with the quality of the writing of your students or the quality of speech of your students, and you want to see how many different words, not the same word, you are concerned with the type. But if it's not of your concern, not of your interest, maybe you go to the token style. You are going to count every repeated word. We have long here, the same long, maybe. We have long 2 times here, maybe 2. Yes, 2. So again here we have one type, which is long, but how many tokens? 2 tokens, because it was repeated 2 times. And you have the word longer. Again, long and longer. 2 different words or not? You need to decide. You need to decide on this. We have something called, I don't want to go deeper into vocabulary, because this is my specialization, and I like talking about vocabulary. By the way, it happened by chance that this example is here. I did not mean, it was not meant to be squeezed in this course. We have something called, as I said, word families and lemma. Word families, as I said, different words belong to the same word family. Informant, information, inform, with different part of speech. With lemma, it's still the same part of speech, but with different inflections. Okay? So long and longer, adjective. Okay? Still, they are adjective. Go and goes, still, verb, but with different inflections. Are you going to count lemmas as well, as different words or as the same word? So you see, different problems arise when you want to decide how many words to count in a text. Why? Just because you want to decide on the suitability of the text to your students, whether this text is suitable, easy to your students or not. So you see, it's not a very easy job, and still it's considered a piece of research. You can have this as a piece of research. You go and present it as a piece of research. You say, well, I have selected this text and I found blah 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 with some numbers and statistics. So this is just an example, and it can be harder if we look at T units. T units is something larger than just a piece of words. It's called sometimes chunking or chunk words. So a T word, it is called terminable unit, abbreviated as T unit. And here are some examples. When I got home, this is a T unit. The new TV I ordered. Yesterday was on the doorstep. John got up and left the room. John got up and Mary left the room. So all of these T units, and deciding on them, still very, very difficult. Using T units, sometimes the more T units in a text, it means the more advanced it is. So sometimes you would like to use T units to measure the difficulty or the stability of a text to your advanced students, sometimes it is crucial and it's not easy to differentiate between two texts in terms of difficulty, you refer to T units as one way to measure the difficulty of the text. So I'll leave you with this task just to give you a flavor, just to warm you up for research. And as I said earlier, this course prepares you for the next course and for your life. You never know, after maybe 5-6 years, you will be asked to be involved in research, or maybe you will continue doing your master and PhD. This course is very helpful, and it prepares you very well for that time. Last but not least, as I said, it's very popular in research that researchers and teachers want to know the errors of their students, and they want sometimes to classify them. And here we have some kind of classification. Grammar error, grammatical errors. Students say, for example, he go instead of he goes. This is an error. Vocabulary errors. They want, for example, to say kulliya, and they say kidney, which is kilya. This is a vocabulary error. L1 induced error. That means the error is coming from L1 because they are thinking in Arabic. They are producing these problems. This is just one way to classify the errors. But do you see any problems? Yes, I can see a problem because the errors can be from L1. L1 is the source of the problem. L1 is the source of the problem, and it can be grammar, vocab, and we can have L2, which is English, grammar, and vocab. So this is just one way to improve the classification if you are interested in finding errors. Errors coming from the Arabic language, in our case, L1, or coming from L2, English, in our case. This is just, as I said, to give you a flavor of research, some practical tasks to give you some fun instead of just giving you theoretical talks about research. This is just one way to change the mood of the course. I'll see you, inshallah, next lecture with more and more information about research method and design. Thank you for watching or listening, and all the best.